Everything off the field, it is what it is, but everybody know when it's time to get on that grass, then you know who I am.
Shedeur,
what would you say your goal is for this first off-season workout program and your first training camp? There's obviously a lot of talk about, like, well, can you be the starter as a fifth-round pick? Like, will you make the team? Like, what is your goal when we get to, September and the games are really getting played in the roster?
My goal is to be the best teammate and to be as polished as I can be. So, in every aspect, I view things as I got time.
Cleveland, sit down for this one. While everybody's been arguing about who starts at quarterback, Shedeur Sanders just quietly confirmed the biggest business news of his career, and it has nothing to do with a stat sheet. Brands that stayed away during the draft slide are suddenly circling back. Insiders close to his camp are calling this the most significant deal he's landed since Nike. And the timing isn't an accident. Right when the football conversation is loudest, Shedeur just reminded everyone he's building something that outlasts any depth chart. Here's what's actually going on. Here's what's actually happening right now. For months, the story around Shedeur off the field was almost entirely about the draft slide. 5th round, 15 teams passing on him. Analysts spent that stretch picking apart everything from his mechanics to his interviews, and for a minute, it looked like the business side of his career might cool off the same way some assumed his football stock had. That is not what happened. While the football world was still relitigating the draft, the people who actually track NIL and endorsement money never stopped watching him. He already carried one of the highest personal brand valuations of any player to come out of college football in years. He already had Nike in his corner, following the same path his father walked decades earlier. So when word started spreading that a new deal was close, it wasn't really a surprise to the people who'd been paying attention. It was a confirmation of something they'd been expecting since before he ever put on a Browns jersey. What makes this one different is the framing. This isn't being talked about as just another logo on a cleat. People close to the situation are describing it as a validation moment, proof that the marketability didn't disappear the moment the draft got ugly. If anything, the slide may have done the opposite. It turned him into one of the most talked about young players in the league regardless of where he was picked, and attention like that is exactly what brands chase. And that's the part worth sitting with. A draft slide is supposed to shrink a player's leverage. Instead, this is shaping up as a case where the noise made him more valuable off the field, not less.
To go back to the reps and maximizing the reps you're getting, and you talked about a lot of the work you do inside the building too. Just how do you think you're handling that and maximizing the chances you're given out here by also doing work inside and after practice and things like that?
Well, that's no different than that's normal than what we grew up doing and what we've been doing at Colorado and Jackson. So I just feel like I'm back in my element. It's grass, it's fresh grass. You hear the birds outside. You understand what peace is at this point in life. So, I'm back in my element. I'm excited to be here.
Stop for a second, because this is where it actually gets interesting. Think about how personal brand deals usually work for rookies. Most of the time, a player gets drafted. A few smaller regional or category deals trickle in, and the real money waits until they prove something on the field. Shedeur has never really followed that pattern. He built the SS2 legendary brand years before he was a household name nationally, turned it into millions in NIL money while he was still in college, and did it with a level of intentionality that people around him have compared to how his father built his own brand a generation earlier. So when a new deal like this gets unveiled, it isn't landing on a blank slate. It's landing on top of a track record that already includes Nike, Beats by Dre, Gatorade, Mercedes-Benz, and a long list of others who signed on well before he ever threw an NFL pass. The difference now is scale. This is being described by people close to the deal as a career best moment, not because the dollar figure alone is unprecedented, but because of what it represents. A rookie who slid to the 5th round is still commanding the kind of attention usually reserved for a first-round pick with a highlight reel to match. There's also a structural piece of this that's easy to miss if you're not paying close attention to how these deals get built now. Reports out of his camp over the past several months have pointed to contract language designed to give him ongoing participation in anything built around his name, image, and likeness, not just a flat one-time payout. If this new deal follows that same blueprint, it isn't just a headline moment. It's a long-term revenue stream that keeps paying out well past whatever happens on the field this season. That's the real story underneath the announcement. This isn't a guy cashing a check and moving on. It's a guy treating every deal like a building block in something much bigger than a single NFL contract.
Yeah, for sure, but every time the ball hit the ground, I feel a little bit of unsuccess. So I don't really feel great whenever I know it's a completion on the field and I don't get to it. So that's what I'm hard on myself about, and that's what I want to make sure I always improve every day. And in football, it's always going to be good and bad, so you just clean up the bad stuff one day at a time, and after practice I work on the throws that I missed or
So if the business side is accelerating, what does that actually mean for how people see him heading into the season? This is where the two storylines start to collide. On one hand, you've got the quarterback competition, the practice reports, the constant back and forth about who's taking first-team reps. On the other hand, you've got a business trajectory that keeps climbing no matter what happens with the depth chart. And those two things are starting to feed off each other in a way that's rare for a rookie still fighting for a starting job. Normally, a player's off-field value follows the on-field results. Prove it on Sundays, and the deals follow. Shedeur's path has run almost in reverse. The brand recognition, the following, the deal flow, all of that was already established before he took a single regular season snap. Now, the football side is catching up to the business side instead of the other way around. And that's an unusual position for any young player to be in. It also changes the pressure calculus. A player without that kind of off-field foundation is playing purely for job security. Shedeur is playing with a safety net most rookies simply don't have. That doesn't mean the competition matters any less to him. If anything, people who've talked to those around him describe someone who wants to win the job specifically to add to the story he's already building, not because his identity depends on it. That's a very different mental starting point than a guy with everything riding on one training camp. And there's a wider signal here for how brands are starting to treat NFL rookies in general. The old model was wait and see. Watch the games, then decide whether the investment makes sense. This deal, landing before he's played a single regular season snap, tells you the model is shifting. Brands are increasingly willing to bet on attention and story over box score production alone. And Shedeur is turning into the clearest example of that shift in the entire league right now.
Shedeur, you mentioned your spiritual growth when you first started. What made that happen now?
Well, I wouldn't say now. I always know when God's talking to me. Like last night, if any of y'all see, I tweeted something.
Here's the part that ties all of this together. Zoom out and look at the full picture. A player who slid further than almost anyone expected on draft night is now sitting on one of the strongest personal brand portfolios of any rookie in football, and it just added another major piece. That's not a coincidence, and it's not just good luck with timing either. It's the result of years of building something deliberately, long before the NFL ever became part of the conversation. The people closest to him keep describing the same theme. He treats the business side like its own competition, one he's been playing and winning since long before Cleveland drafted him. The quarterback battle in Berea is going to get decided by practice reps and preseason snaps. This deal is a reminder that regardless of how that particular competition shakes out, the bigger one, the one about building a name that outlasts any single roster spot, is already going his way. That's really the story here. Two tracks running side by side. One is about who starts at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. The other is about a young player who's already proven he knows how to turn attention, good or bad, into something that lasts. Right now, both tracks are trending in his favor, and that's exactly why this news is landing as loud as it is. So where does this actually leave things? Is this the moment people look back on as the start of Shedeur becoming one of the biggest names in the league, regardless of what happens under center? Or is the quarterback competition still the thing that ultimately decides how big this all gets? Drop your take in the comments. Does the business side change how you see the competition, or are you only watching the depth chart? Smash like and subscribe.